Dugald Maudsley is executive producer and writer of a brand new program for the new season of The Nature of Things. The program is called Inside the Great Vaccine Race, and it's an amazing documentary coming up November 5th at 9 p.m. Let's welcome Dugald Maudsley. Dugald, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
Who would have thought all those months ago, as the news came out of Wuhan, China, and we were a little concerned at the start, but who would have thought we would end up where we are today? It must have been certainly a life-changing moment for you as a documentary producer as well.
Yes, it was. It was pretty dramatic. We were in the midst of making a different film. We were doing a film about climate change, for the nature of things, and we were finding it progressively more difficult. People didn't want our crews coming. It was hard to get onto planes as the virus began moving around the world, and we all started to shut down. And we realized maybe we shouldn't be making a film about climate change. We should be making a film about this event, because it was clearly historic. It was clearly dramatic, and it was clearly something that was going to affect everyone on the planet. So we went to the nature of things and said, what about this? And to their credit, because who knew how this was going to end or what kind of film we would get, they said, yes, go for it. And we started filming.
Now, deciding to do that is one thing, but there were a large number of teams, research teams, that were working on this project. How on earth did you determine how you were going to follow what team where?
Yeah, it was a really difficult thing. We had to really scramble quickly, and I was working with two very talented people, well, a very big team, but PJ Narinsky and Monica Delmos, our researcher. Monica and I started to get in touch with all of these different teams. We were looking at a bunch of things. We were looking at wanting to have teams from all over the world, because one of the dramatic things that was happening was that people were collaborating in ways they never had. So we wanted to capture that collaboration. We wanted different technologies. Some people were doing DNA, some people were doing this new RNA vaccine. And we also wanted to have a Canadian team. That was important to us as well. So in the end, we scrambled and we came up with a bunch of choices, and then we started talking to these teams. And, quite extraordinarily, many of them agreed to take part.
Now, that must have been a little bit of an undertaking, negotiating with these teams, because after all, they are focused on trying to find the secret, so to speak. And here you are wanting to piggyback on their journey. How did that go?
Well, it was actually a lot. It wasn't easy, but it was a lot easier than we expected, because there were many other documentary teams. We weren't the only ones out there. But I think that people were extremely generous, because they were spending a lot of money to do this research. They didn't want us bringing COVID into the lab with us. So we worked with them. We reduced the size of our team. We worked out ways to film that would work for them. And some of the negotiations took a little while, because we had to, we got the BioNTech team to come on board. We got a team in China to come on board, which I think was quite a coup. So, but generally, I think everyone realized that this was something that should be documented, and they were willing to take part.
You followed some very interesting people throughout this edition of The Nature of Things. And as you mentioned, you followed Canadian researchers. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about these tremendously bright and committed people that appear on camera.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the thing that struck us most about these people was just how dedicated they were. They were working 24/7. Alison Kelvin, who we look at in the film, who's a Canadian who left her home in Halifax to go out to Saskatoon because there was a really great lab out there and a team that was working hard. Sacrifices were made everywhere. Everyone worked extremely hard, and that really struck us. The team at Vito Wintervac in Saskatoon had 40 years of experience making vaccines. And so they pivoted to put that into action. BioNTech, the team that won the race in Germany, they spent 20 years working on RNA vaccines for cancer. So they realized, hey, we can use this against this new killer virus. In China, they had made a vaccine to fight the Ebola virus. which had been very successful. And they realized they could use that same technology, modify it, and use it against the coronavirus. So all over, and in the last, I guess the final team we focused on was Dr. Jonathan Heaney at Cambridge University, who's a Canadian, trained as a veterinarian at the University of Guelph. And he had been working on a pan-flu vaccine, so a vaccine that would fight many different types of flu. And again, he realized, I can pivot from this and try to make a pan-coronavirus vaccine. So in each case, the technology was there, but in different forms. And these very smart and very dedicated people realized, if we go really hard, we can take our technology and we can use it for this other purpose that really is critical now to try to save lives around the globe.
Now, from a production standpoint, there must have been some significant challenges having these teams in various parts of the world. Were you able to kind of split the responsibilities and have people in different locations, or did you have to kind of move from one center to another center? How did you go about that?
Yeah, well, it was really a big challenge. We had to rethink how we normally make documentaries, because normally we have a team here in Canada that goes out to all these different places around the world. Now we couldn't get on a plane. Now, we didn't have people wanting us to step into their labs with 3 or 4 crew members. And what we did was we brought on board a really terrific director named PJ Narinsky, who actually is based in Victoria. And poor PJ basically started working around the clock. He was in charge of each of our teams. With my help, he established the style for the film. We decided on the gear we needed, all those technical things. We sent out a book, which was, this is our style. And then PJ started talking to these people all the time. They would pick up the phone and call them and say, here's our camera angle. What do you think? So at all night hours of the day and night, he had people calling in from whether it was China or the UK, or we did some filming in Brazil. All those places would check in with PJ. He would check in with me. I did all the interviews, just like you and I are doing here, on Zoom with the different people that we talked to. I think I interviewed Ugur Shaheen at 4 a.m. my time. So that was just the way that we had to operate, by remote control. And, it's a real credit to PJ's abilities that we have this consistent looking film. You wouldn't know that it was shot by 12 different teams in all these different parts of the world.
No, it really is a beautiful piece of production. And it intrigued me to see that all these different sites were being covered, because it really is like taking a calendar and following the progress through the whole procedure. A very dramatic time of life. Did you all feel this as you were producing the documentary?
Absolutely. I mean, we not only were producing the documentary, but like everybody around the world, we were also dealing with the pandemic. So it was affecting our lives. We went into lockdown. I still remember going to my partner in life and my partner in business, Jillian Main. Her birthday was on March the 12th. Well, the next day we were locked down. So that was something that we were dealing with personally. And then, of course, there were always the challenges of filming with these teams. And could we get into the lab today? What were they doing? Was it safe? Where were we at with the pandemic? What did our crew need to do? What did our crew not need to do? And that was happening at Cambridge University. It was happening in Tianjin, China. It was happening wherever we needed to be in Mainz, Germany, where BioNTech was. So yeah, we thought about that pandemic every single day we shot.
As we watch the program and we see the progress, and we all know that we have had some exciting solutions that have been delivered to most of us here in North America, but we're still a long way from the finish line. And I think that comes through quite strongly in your documentary as well.
I'm really glad you say that, because I think that was for us the big thing that we learned. I've talked to many people and they say, well, we're done. The race is over. It's like, no, it actually isn't. It's still going on. There's over 300 vaccines still in development. We only have a fraction of those vaccines that have made it to the market. We have 4.5 billion people around the world who've yet to receive a single dose. And if we want to beat this, as Jonathan Heaney said in our documentary, if you want to beat this, we have to get everyone vaccinated. And it's not only important for them, But it's one of those things that's important for everybody, because if we don't vaccinate everyone, the virus continues to mutate, it continues to circulate, and we get the Delta variant, and then we get the next variant, which comes back to haunt us even if we have been vaccinated. So the big lesson for me was this race isn't over. We still have a long way to go. We need more vaccines out there, and we need to get everybody vaccinated. It's really important.
Seeing your documentary and having watched it and listened to the people, I really got the feeling that I was watching a piece of history that's been put down on film, recorded for future generations. Did you ever get the feeling that you were doing something that important?
Not originally. I think originally we thought, well, maybe. And then as we began to go through and we watched just, how tragically devastating this pandemic has been, how it changed our lives, how we work from home now, all the things that have changed, it became very clear that this was a really historic moment. And so we realized we do have something important going on here. We are documenting this moment, and we haven't had anything like this in 100 years, in a way. I guess there was the flu pandemic, and in 100 years, in 1920. So we did, I think, become pretty aware that this was historic, that we were capturing it, and that was really important.
Now, Dugald, you mentioned that you'll be going back to following on projects that you had started before this all came along on the environment and climate change. But as you come out of this, and the air date comes close, coming up on November the 5th, it's going to be an exciting evening. Do you feel that this whole process has changed you in any way? Has this had a personal impact on you?
I think that the process of making the film, in one sense, it's been exhausting, because it's been like moving through wet cement trying to make it. It's been hard work in that sense. Has it changed me? I think it has, but I think probably in the way that other people have been changed by the pandemic itself, not so much by the process of making a documentary. I think we've all been changed by this in ways that we're still trying to figure out. But yes, I think all of us have been changed by what has been a life-changing, life-taking, life-saving a moment in history and in our lives. So yeah, from that perspective, I feel very much changed. As a filmmaker, I feel tired, but also I feel pretty excited that we have this documentary to air, that the nature of things, the CBC supported us through a long, long process. All of that has been a positive experience.
Well, as we mentioned, it's November 5th at 9 p.m. And what a nice way to begin a new season, the 61st season of The Nature of Things. That must be a television milestone of some sort.
It's the longest running science and natural history program in the world. And Dr. David Suzuki is on his 41st season. So it's pretty amazing.
My goodness. Well, a very exciting time, a lovely piece of work. Congratulations to you and your team. I trust that you're bit by bit recovering from the whole process. And we thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dugald.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
Our guest today has been Dugald Maudsley, and Dugald is the executive producer and writer for The Nature of Things inside the great vaccine race. Don't miss it. It's coming up Friday evening, 9 o'clock. That's November the 5th.